Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the online section of Psych 350. April, it is. Our topic this week is violent and child abuse, a very dear topic to me, a complex topic to discuss, especially in times of our current crisis. More than 10 million Americans experience domestic violence per year, and 60% of cases are not even reported. In this pre-recorded lecture, I would like to focus on children, the most vulnerable citizens. We need to pay more attention and help parents engage in more mindful parenting. Child abuse is a known pandemic since ancient civilization. Human records, literature, art, and science show the existence of various forms of violence against children. Records are also filled with stories of child neglect, malnourishment, sexual trafficking, exploitation, and children cast out by their families to fend for themselves. Child abuse did not receive widespread attention by the medical profession or the general public until 1962. Here you see an excerpt, an abstract by Camp et al. 1962. The term battered child syndrome was coined to characterize the clinical manifestations of serious physical abuse in young children. Now, 6 decades later, there is clear evidence that child abuse is a global problem. It occurs in a variety of forms and is deeply rooted in cultural, economic, and social practices. Solving this problem, this pandemic, however, requires a much better understanding of its occurrence in a range of settings, as well as of its causes and consequences in these settings. More than 10 years after Campus et al. Publication, Nixon signed the Child Abuse Prevention and Treatment Act into law in 1974. Here you have a legal definition of child abuse. Any recent act or failure to act on the part of a parent or caretaker which results in death, serious physical or emotional harm, sexual abuse or exploitation, or an act or failure to act which presents an imminent risk of serious harm. There are 4 major forms of child abuse: neglect, physical abuse, sexual abuse, and psychological maltreatment. And here in this graph, you see the prevalence of the different forms of child maltreatment, and neglect is far more the prevalent one out of all types of abuse. Some key findings in maltreatment reports, which was published in 2017, just recently actually, by the Child's Bureau. So Child Protective Service agencies received an estimated 4.1 million referrals for child abuse. 3.5 million children received child protective services. The highest rate of victimization occurred in children from birth to age 1. 91.4% of child victims were maltreated by one or both parents. 70% of child victims were maltreated by a mother, either acting solo or with a father and or another person, such as step-parent or boyfriend, girlfriend. 74.9% of victims are neglected. 18.3% are physically abused, and 8.6% are sexually abused. These victims may suffer a single maltreatment type or a combination of 2 or more maltreatment types. Approximately 1,720 children died of abuse and neglect at a rate of 2.32 per 100,000 children in the national population. Horrific. Actually, every 10 seconds, we lose a child to abuse. Signs of abuse exist and in order to understand the situation, more than one sign has to repeatedly occur. Let's look closer at the signs in children and parents based on the gateway information provided by the Children's Bureau. So signs, you can see signs in children, in abusive parents, or in the diet. So let's look at the children. The child shows sudden changes in behavior or school performance. The child has not received help for physical or medical problems brought to the parent's attention. The child has learning problems or difficulty concentrating that cannot be attributed to specific physical or psychological causes. The child is always watchful, as though preparing for something bad to happen. The child lacks adult supervision in general. The child is overly compliant, passive, or withdrawn. The child comes to school or other activities early, stays late, and doesn't want to go home. Now, signs of an abusive parent. Parent shows little concern for the child. The parent denies the existence of the child's problems in school or at home and basically blames the child. The child asks teachers or other caregivers to use harsh physical discipline if the child misbehaves. The parent sees the child as entirely bad, worthless, or burdensome, and generally speaks very negative about the child and in front of the child. Demands a level of physical or academic performance the child cannot achieve or is not age appropriate. The parent looks primarily to the child for care, attention, and satisfaction of emotional needs. We all know that development is a bidirectional process. So you can also watch parent-child interactions and see some kind of abuse. If they rarely touch or look at each other, they consider a relationship entirely negative, or that they state that they do not like each other and they don't want to see each other. Obviously, the question is why? Why? These horrible statistics. Why? Well, most parents want to be good parents, but sometimes lose control and are unable to cope with the stresses of life. This is not an excuse, of course not, but alcohol is involved majority of times. Illicit drugs and other stressors, sometimes within the control of the parent or out of the control of the parents. It is difficult to imagine that any parent, any person could intentionally inflict harm on a child. As a mother myself, I could never, ever even do such a thing or can imagine that parents physically abuse children or in other kinds of forms. Many times, physical abuse is a result of excessive discipline, of physical punishment that is inappropriate for the child's age. The parent may simply be unaware, uneducated of the child's needs and child development. And also the parent might be just simply unaware of the magnitude of force with which he or she strikes the child. Bottom line is every child deserves to grow up feeling safe and loved. We have prevention in the primary level. So parent education classes on child development are key, very important, and we should start early offering them in elementary school and the latest in high school before parents become parents. Have health fairs for children and families and the community. Get involved in the Child Abuse Prevention Month. This is April. Let's do it. Donate time and money to child abuse prevention organizations. Educate yourself and your community. On a secondary preventive level, the focus is more on when there is a high risk of child abuse or possible cases of child maltreatment. So then it's important that you connect parents with resources, including parenting education classes, support groups. Connect parents and families to substance abuse treatment programs, support groups, or family resource centers. It's also very important that you provide care and support for those families that have children with special needs so they can get the help and proper support to nurture their children in a healthy way. There's another approach. We know that state funded home visiting projects are very successful, where a nurse or social worker visits the family, especially high risk family, within the first 2 years, starting from birth. Those programs have shown over 20% success rate in minimizing child abuse and maltreatment. Another one, parent-child interaction therapy, is conducted for coaching session, as you can see in this picture, during which the diet is in a playroom while the therapist is in an observation room watching the parent-child interaction through a one-way mirror, and or right now probably during our pandemic live video feed. So the parent wears a bug in the ear, and through this device, the therapist provides in-the-moment coaching on skills to manage the child's behavior, such as the parent mimics the child's behavior to signal that I'm with you, I appreciate what you're doing, and praises the child. And overall, the therapist guides the parent to become very conscious and child oriented in his or her language and behavior. Being silent is never a reason. Even if you're doubting, say something. Call, reach out, investigate, be informed. Never be silent. Healthy relationships between children and all stakeholders are crucial to prevent children from experiencing traumatic events. As we know by now, these events are also called adverse childhood experiences. ACEs, like child abuse and neglect, disrupt the development of a child's growing brain. And we all know that the first 3 years and up are very crucial for the child's brain development. These disruptions lead to negative lifelong health consequences, such as increased risk for heart disease, other chronic diseases such as diabetes, pulmonary diseases, allergies, mental health issues, and possible suicide. However, healthy relationships reduce social isolation and loneliness and promote connectedness, provide a supportive presence for adults and children, and help to prevent adverse childhood experiences in the first place. Thank you very much for tuning in. I look forward to seeing you soon in the online Synchronous section of this lecture. Do not forget, April is Prevent Child Abuse Awareness Month. Spread the word. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.